Hello everyone, I'm Marissa Jaffa with Safe Water Network. I'm one of the organizers of this global youth convening, and I would like to welcome you all to this exciting event around water, sustainable living, and communities. I'm very excited to announce that we have attendees from over 35 countries with us here today. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items so you know exactly how to participate in today's event. At any time during the webinar, you will have the opportunity to submit your questions to today's presenters. To do so, just type your questions into the Q&A at the bottom of the control panel. As time allows, the presenters will address as many questions as they can during the Q&A sessions. We will be recording this webinar and we will share the link after the event. Without further ado, I would now like to introduce Kurt Soderlund, founding CEO of Safe Water Network. Enjoy the convening.
Thank you, Marissa. It's terrific to have representation from more than 35 countries. Welcome all. I wanted to provide a bit of context for this event and why we're doing it. When Marissa and her colleagues proposed an event focused on youth, my immediate reaction was, that's an audience we should spend more time engaging. Most of us involved in social enterprises are driven by a desire to make a difference, improving the world for others. Inevitably, that means making the world a better place, importantly for the next generation. This event is a logical extension of that commitment, both to change and to bring additional perspectives and efforts to the work at hand. With that in mind, I offer two considerations as a kickoff to the discussion. First, if you're interested in problem solving and managing through complexity, you will find work with social enterprises very rewarding. Whether you're passionate about social justice, climate and environment, public health, political reform, or other issues, the challenges you will encounter are substantive and cross-cutting. By way of example, our work at Safe Water Network ranges from on-the-ground engagement with communities, bringing them safe water, continuous improvements with social, health, and technical innovations, training and skill building, working with and helping others to replicate the approach, and policy work with key stakeholders to address issues of affordability, ownership, and equitable access. The final thought I'll leave with you, whether you are looking to make a career in social enterprises or lend time and support, there are many ways to get involved and make a difference. We have a terrific group of panelists to share their thinking on those opportunities. With that, I'm thrilled to be kicking off this event, engaging you, the next generation, in our collective desire to make a lasting and positive difference. I now welcome my colleague, Venki Raghavendran, who will MC the event.
Thank you, Kurt. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whichever part of the world you are. I know it's quite late to several of you who are in the farthest parts of Asia, fairly early for some of you who are on the west coast of the United States. But it's really such a great feeling to have all of you join us. So thank you once again for coming together. And I have a feeling that in the next 90 minutes, you will get a lot of amazing inspiration, insights, and perhaps some tools and techniques to continue your great work as change makers wherever you are and whatever you're doing in your respective community. I'm so pleased to also introduce two amazing people for the opening segment of today's webinar and the virtual convening. Firstly, let me introduce a young change maker, Abigail Osei, who works at the Star Foundation, but is very active with the young community in New York City, especially the Ghanaian youth that she actively works with. So my pleasure to invite Abigail Osei to the global convening. And my great pleasure to introduce and welcome Dr. Rajiv Shah, the president of Rockefeller Foundation. Dr. Raj Shah actually needs no introduction, but I must share that he's the former head of the USAID, did some phenomenal work around the world. He's a person who is always thinking about big change, systemic change, and ways to tackle some of the biggest problems the world is facing today. In fact, his most recent focus and preoccupation has been around all the testing and screening that's needed to contain the spread of the pandemic right now that the world is facing. So I now invite Dr. Rajiv Shah and Abigail to talk to all of you.
Good morning. Welcome, Dr. Shah. How are you doing today?
I'm great, Abigail. It's wonderful to be with you, and thanks for inviting me. This is a great forum, and I'm amazed by all the wonderful people you have assembled around the world to join us. So congratulations.
Thank you. I was excited too. From the moment Safe Water got in contact with me and they said this was for young people, even before they told me the details, I heard young people, I said yes. And so I'm very happy to be here. So we don't want to take too much of anyone's time, so let's jump right in. I did my Google search, I read your Wikipedia page, and I learned that you are a world traveler. So the first thing that I want to know is, what is the most innovative or unexpected solution that you've come across from young people specifically in your travels?
Well, thank you. I'll say that given coronavirus, I am no longer a world traveler. The most traveling I do is from my bedroom to my office in my home. But it's been an extraordinary, I've had so many extraordinary opportunities to be all around the world and see particularly, young people who are committed to creating change and taking on, new challenges. Just in November, I was in Bihar, India, with many of our outstanding partners through a program called Smart Power India. These young folks are developing new forms of energy storage and solar panels and mini grids that are able to provide electricity to villages. And while it's easy to go and see the huge impact this makes on a young woman who, for example, was trying to support her family with a sewing business, but didn't have reliable electricity, or other families that just wanted lights in their home so they could read at night. What I found so inspiring were these young computer scientists who are inventing new forms of artificial intelligence-based distance management of rural mini grids. And, they're in their 20s. They're so sharp. They could be working for, big companies selling shoes to people using micro-targeting AI strategies. And instead they've chosen to commit themselves to using that extraordinary skill set to create change in these otherwise impoverished villages that we met. Those kinds of entrepreneurs, particularly ones that make that choice, I always find so inspiring. And I've had the chance to see that in every continent on earth, really. And it's really inspiring for me.
Wow, that's amazing. Whenever I think about technology, sometimes I wonder if I missed like a calling, but then I think I'm not really good at math. So I'm always inspired, by young people, by anyone who can really just make what seems to me anyway, like anything from whatever they have, they put their hands to. And as you were answering that question, it really sounded to me like it wasn't just technology, but they were almost like working across fields to bring change in their community. And so a question that has really been on my mind is, as we think about sustainable development, as we think about community, we heard today we have over 35 countries represented today. How can we work across fields? Like, for example, we've all gathered here today because Safe Water Network, a water organization, brought us together. So how would, let's say, a water organization work with education or agriculture or technology to make sure that these developments are actually collaborative and that they're not siloed?
Well, first, I would take some issue. I doubt that you're not good at math, because I know that you tutor young kids in the South Bronx, and I know that your passions and heart are there. So I'm not going to just let you get away with saying that. I also think that, and I've been following and known Venki for some time in the work of the Safe Water Network. I think at the end of the day, it is at the intersection of these fields where we make real progress. It is, understanding the role of micro-irrigation in small-scale agriculture throughout Africa, and finding business models and scientists and inventors that can solve the challenge that most African agriculture today is still rain-fed, and that really undermines the basic economics of progress for economies that have 30+% of labor of GDP still in the agricultural sector. So I think that's whether it's that intersection or frankly the movements over time to create commercial social entrepreneurship oriented water businesses that serve very vulnerable communities. It was one of my early learnings, I think, in Kibera in Nairobi, was that very poor families often spend 3 or 4 times what a middle-class family might spend to get access to basic items that you need to live and survive. And in this case, water was one of those basic items. And I remember, talking to women and asking about that, and then testing some new water purification strategies and technologies with folks in that setting. But there are all these small commercial entrepreneurial businesses trying to make sure that people that live in that slum effectively have some access to clean water. And, we shouldn't live in a world where the poorest people on the planet spend 3 to 4 times what middle-class or wealthier people spend on water, on electricity, on food, on protein in particular. And so all the change agents that have joined you today, I think one of the big tasks of building an inclusive economy is making sure there's some equity in how the economics system works. And that requires just focusing on these global development priorities.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. I am so happy that you mentioned that word equity. I think, whenever I personally think about COVID-19 and what 2020 has become, I go back to December 31st. I was at church and, like everyone else doing New Year's resolutions, looking forward to 2020. And what it has become now is not what I thought it would be. And one of the things that we've all noticed during COVID-19 is that it has really highlighted the disparities and the inequities that already existed before the pandemic, but now no one can excuse, no one can say they had no idea. And so as you talk about equity being necessary, my question to you is, the inequities and disparities that were there before the pandemic, and for me specifically, because of my passion for young people and focusing on women and girls, we know that throughout history, women and girls have always almost seemed like an afterthought. So how can we make sure that in this mostly virtual world that we're living in, that we don't repeat those inequities, that we don't repeat the disparities, and that we don't forget our young women and our young girls in this virtual world?
Well, Abigail, I look at the world we live in today, and I feel like COVID has exposed a tremendous amount of inequity that exists in the world. In the United States, for example, most people didn't believe or didn't know or didn't fully understand that as many as 60% of American households fall behind every month, and as many as 40% of American households have essentially over the past 40 years had a decreasing amount of upward economic mobility and opportunity for themselves and their children. I personally think that's why our politics are so harsh in the United States, and why we see this populist anger in both parties. And I've seen that same trend around the world. And so when you look at what COVID has done in America, Black Americans are 5 times more likely to be hospitalized from COVID than the general population. The number one risk factor of dying in a nursing home in the United States is being Black, because of the specific consequence of COVID-19 on elderly African Americans in the United States. When you look around the World Bank has just estimated that after decades and decades of progress that have brought hundreds of millions of people out of subsistence poverty, the bank is now estimating 425 million people will be pushed back under an expanded definition of the subsistence poverty line. I think something like $3 or $4 a day, not the $1.90. And that is a lesson we should all be looking at. And if we're going to avoid that consequence, we have to make sure this recovery has equity at its core and at its heart. And that means investing in the United States in minority populations that have been put down for too long. It means investing in a global emerging markets context in lower income communities. And as you point out, in women and girls specifically, which have been the engines of poverty reduction, of growth, of childhood education, of lower total fertility rates. And they've been the engine of that cycle of human development that takes hold in community after community. And one of my big fears is that, for a variety of reasons, the recovery prioritizes those people with capital, those people with access to stock markets, those people for whom a powerful Federal Reserve can offer protection, and that for those who are workers in the industrial world, or those who are otherwise on the cusp of extreme and subsistence poverty around the world, that we don't mount a big coordinated effort to unlock their human potential. And I know you guys are going to hear from my friend and colleague Ravi Venkatesan next, and he'll talk, I hope, about entrepreneurship and how important that is. But women entrepreneurs, women earning income, women getting educated, women having the power to manage their birth decisions, those are the pathways towards an equitable recovery from a global development perspective.
Amazing. Thank you so much. As you're speaking, I see that a lot of questions are coming in. And the first question is just awesome. Some of our attendees are actually ready and willing to offer help. And so we do have a question here about the young people in Bihar, India, who are creating sustainable inventions. If someone wanted to help them specifically, or even any organization, for anyone young, older, who feels inspired today and wants to actually put their resources, put their money, or even put their knowledge, how do they begin doing that?
Well, that's a broad question. I mean, I think if somebody wants to support our Smart Power India program in India, we please be in touch with my colleagues at the Rockefeller Foundation, and we would be eager to partner with folks and accept everything from financial to other types of contributions for that effort. But I think more broadly, the question of how do young people kind of connect to the ability to have impact on inequity is one that I just see everybody asking themselves. And to me, the answers are sort of what I'd call large and small. I think being involved in your community, being involved with organizations that you're close to, so that you can interact with and understand the needs of those you serve, is one important way. You do that by tutoring. There's so many different ways to do that. And I think people should just be more active and more involved in this moment, especially because COVID has such a tragic consequence on equity all around the world. I think for the bigger question of how do people get involved in kind of global development activities, that's always been a challenge. It's always been a field that is too inwardly focused and too limited in terms of engaging people. And one pathway that I really believe matters is joining these more entrepreneurial efforts, whether they are a water project or even a company that is trying to serve low-income communities with water, or an agricultural business that's trying to improve seeds and fertilizers and get them to small-scale farmers. I think more of global development over time will happen through that sort of intersection of entrepreneurship, private enterprise, and innovation than necessarily the organizations that have, in my view, dominated the field for 50, 60 years.
So with that in mind, we have two questions that I'm going to combine here. So on the one hand, how can we tell the difference between an organization that's actually trying to help the local community versus a big corporation that is just commodifying natural resources in order to meet their bottom line or even exceed their bottom line? So that's the first part. And then as you answer that, if you can also tell us, in your opinion, what are the biggest, or top 2, top 3 biggest problems in building a sustainable economy for the developing world? Well,
the answer to the first question is measures. If too many companies, big multinationals in particular, think of the work that you and your colleagues that have joined us today do every day as something that is the subject of a press release that helps them kind of look good. And yet there are some that are dead serious about, you know, measuring their impact on deforestation in certain communities and reducing it and reporting on those outcomes. And so to me, the difference is those who measure impact and those who are serious about knowing that that's their North Star are on the side of right. And I would encourage folks to join them and support their efforts. You know, our Smart Power India effort, which I mentioned, we measure the households' consumption across 400,000 households. We measure their consumption of power. We measure their income changes. We measure in some settings whether those income changes go to women or men and what the impact of that is on job creation, on small business growth, and on the human development indicators related to women's empowerment. So that kind of measurement, Feed the Future, a big United States-based program that took hold in Africa, but with partners like the Alliance for a Green Revolution in Africa, do the same kinds of measures. So I would say those who measure the results are serious about them, and those who don't, you just never know. And then the second question, remind me what the second question was.
Top two or top three,
how do you drive
biggest
global development?
issues?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, it's interesting. I'm a medical doctor by background. I got inspired to do this work thinking that, you know, if you could just make everybody healthy and give kids access to vaccines and make sure women were giving birth in safe assisted facilities, that, you know, that things would be much, much better. And that's true. And then I got very involved in agriculture, and I thought, well, if economies that are agrarian can improve agricultural productivity, as we saw, you know, for decades and decades, and frankly, as the Rockefeller Foundation, which I now lead, has done so much special work on, that unlocks inclusive growth in a fundamental way. I think as we now look to the future, and I think you used this phrase, but the future is digital, and the future is technology enabled. And the future requires an economic infrastructure that reaches the most vulnerable communities around the emerging world and brings them into a digital and interconnected economy. You cannot do that without access to electricity. You need a lot of other things. You need broadband, you need training, but the baseline of unlocking human productivity requires energy access. And we still live in a world where 800 million people to 1 billion people don't have even about enough power to turn on a light bulb and use it consistently over the course of a year. And the number goes up to 3 billion, 2 or 3 billion, if you start to ask about productive power, the power to kind of run a small business and create jobs and sell product and grow income. So I saw when I was at USAID, you know, every head of state that came through would say, well, I need power, I need to work on power infrastructure. And then the solutions were always these big coal plants or even big solar farms tied to grid systems that serve the middle and upper classes in those countries. And the poor were once again left to kind of steal power in slums in an uncoordinated and unreliable way, or be quote unquote serviced by a utility that really didn't want to serve them at all because they're not seen as profitable. And I think technology has changed what's possible now. We can use solar mini grids, we can use new battery energy storage tools, we can use artificial intelligence and smart metering to just make sure that everyone on Earth has access to energy and electricity. I think that's the first step. And then the next step is broadband and training. But we need to embrace the idea that the future is digital, it's interconnected, and if you don't have the basic tools to participate in that kind of economy, you are not going to be successful. And we need to start right now making massive investments in an equitable recovery with that approach in mind.
I completely agree. And I think, so we're going to just wrap up here. But I definitely agree. The organizations that were looking digitally, we've seen, I think the numbers, like you said, tracking numbers have shown that they have thrived in this new world that we're in. So just my final question to you is, I know that as a young person, you are no stranger to being the youngest person in the room. And sometimes that can make you hesitant to speak up. Sometimes the people in the room might even tune out your experience because it's so far removed from their own. So just what piece of advice do you have for us as young people gathered today? How can we make our youth an asset and not a negative? And that is my final question for you.
Well, thank you. So here's the thing, I don't get to be the young person in the room anymore. So I would say this, it's not gonna last forever. Use your voice now. If I look back, I have so few regrets. I'm so honored to have had the chance to be in roles where I feel like I've gotten to work with people who have a special commitment to others, and it's changed the nature of my life and my friendships and my professional aspirations and pursuits. My one regret might be, especially earlier in my career, when I found myself in, important rooms where we were saying, well, how do we handle the conflict in Syria? Or how do we handle ending a war in Afghanistan? Or how do we handle embracing the vision of creating a new philanthropy at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation? I sometimes hesitated to share my point of view because I felt, do I really belong here? And here's my advice to all those on the phone today or on the video today, is you do belong. This is your challenge. This is your time. And your thoughts, your ideas, your opinions, and your experiences are needed now more than ever.
Thank you so much. It's been wonderful having this conversation to you. So we will pass it on over to Venki. Thank you, Dr. Shah.
Thank you. Thank you. So nice to be with you.
Thank you, Abigail. Thank you, Dr. Shah. That was insightful. That was amazing and thought-provoking. So really appreciate your time. And I think Dr. Shah also provided a nice segue to what we want to share next, which is a glimpse into our work on the ground. Of course, we work in India and Ghana, but let's see the work that's happening in India. And the point that Dr. Raj Shah made about the role of digital and technology and so on, and how it's been really pivotal to our success and work in India. So let's see a facet of our work.
Water and women are historically related. Women were always the carriers of water. They were to go and fetch the water. They had to take care of the families at home. However, with Entail Station initiative, we have made women play a more active role. If they start contributing to the GDP, probably the GDP will start going up much faster. Hence, it is very important for us to empower women. They can make a remarkable difference, not only in their own lives, but in the future generations.
నా పేరు పద్మజ, మాది రంగశేపేట గ్రామం. రంగశేపేటలో నల్ల నీళ్ళు, కుళాయి నీళ్ళు సరిగా రావు, వచ్చినా నీట్గా రావు. సో అందరికీ మంచి నీళ్ళు ఇవ్వాలనే ఉద్దేశంతో ఈ ప్లాంట్ పెట్టుకున్నాం. నేను రంగశేపేటలో ఐజల్ ప్లాంట్ నడిపిస్తున్నాను. ఉదయం 5:30 అట్లా లేస్తాను. లేచిన తర్వాత ఇంట్లో పనులన్నీ చూసుకొని పాపను కాలేజీకి పంపించిన తర్వాత, సార్ ఆఫీస్కి వెళ్ళిన తర్వాత 11:30, 12 మధ్యలో ప్లాంట్కి వస్తాను. ప్లాంట్కి వచ్చిన తర్వాత అవన్నీ బుక్స్ చెక్ చేసుకొని, రీఛార్జ్ కార్డ్స్ ఉంటే అవన్నీ రీఛార్జ్ చేసేసి, ప్లాంట్ అంతా క్లీన్గా ఉందా లేదా చెక్ చేసుకొని, తర్వాత వర్కర్స్ అందరూ లంచ్కి వెళ్తారు. ఆ టైంలో నేను ప్లాంట్లోనే ఉంటా. దాని తర్వాత మళ్ళీ వాళ్ళు వచ్చిన తర్వాత ఇంటికి వెళ్తా. మళ్ళీ 6కి నేను ప్లాంట్కి వస్తాను. సేఫ్ వాటర్ నెట్వర్క్ వాళ్ళు మాకు అంతా ట్రైనింగ్ ఇచ్చారు.
It was not easy for us to bring out the women to do these active work of management. We had to build training program, coaching programs in local language, bring them out, train them up. We use digital technologies not only to train them on tablets and also in managing the plant. What we did was put in a remote monitoring system. We put in the system of water ATM so that they have flexibility of time. They can come at their time, they can dispense the water whenever they want, and they can also during their daytime go and engage more and more customers, while machine is able to dispense water 24/7.
తర్వాత ఆర్ఎంఎస్ మీటర్ ఉంది అదే లోపల, ఆ ప్లాంట్ రన్ అవుతూనే ఉంది, ఆటోమేటిక్గా పెట్టుకోవచ్చు దాన్ని. ఆటోమేటిక్ వల్ల అది రన్ అవుతూనే ఉంటుంది, మనం ఎక్కువ అక్కడ ఉండాల్సిన పని కూడా లేదు. తర్వాత సోలార్ ఉంది, కరెంటు పోగానే ఆటోమేటిక్గా సోలార్ మీద రన్ అవుతుంది. సో దీని ద్వారా నేను ఇంట్లో పనులు ఇక్కడ పనులు కూడా చూసుకోగలుగుతున్నా. సో ఎప్పుడైతే ఈ ప్లాంట్ పెట్టినామో అందరూ కూడా ఈ ప్లాంట్ వాటర్ తాగుతున్నారు, తక్కువ రేటు, మంచి హైజీనిక్ వాటర్. ఇంతకుముందు లేడీసే నల్లల దగ్గర బావుల దగ్గర ఉండేవాళ్ళు, ఇప్పుడు ఈ ఐజల్ ప్లాంట్కి ఎక్కువ మగవాళ్ళు ప్లస్ లేడీస్ కూడా వస్తుంటారు, బైక్ తీసుకొని వచ్చి నీళ్ళు తీసుకెళ్తారు. ఈ బిజినెస్కి వచ్చిన తర్వాత చాలా కాన్ఫిడెన్స్ వచ్చింది. ఇంతకుముందు పద్మజ అంటే హౌస్ వైఫ్, ఇప్పుడు పబ్లిక్ అందరూ తెలుసు ఐజల్ స్టేషన్ ఆంటీ అనేది అందరికీ తెలిసిపోయింది. ఐఎమ్ వెరీ ప్రౌడ్ ఆఫ్ దిస్ వర్క్.
Women empowerment and clean water are two faces of the same coin. They will prove to be the biggest change for attaining the SDG goals. But the major change is bringing about gender parity, poverty alleviation, skilling the communities, clean water, and bring a transformative change in the society.
Wow, it's really amazing. Every time we see the kind of work that's happening on the ground, it continues to inspire us. This is a right moment to also remember, even since March 2020, so many of our colleagues and so many of the frontline workers, so many of the operators continue to serve these communities. It's only one can imagine what would happen if underserved communities would not have access to clean water during these times. And we are also, as Dr. Raj Shah was mentioning, we're also privileged to work with some amazing partners like Honeywell and Entail and USAID to continue this work even during these very difficult times. I now want to introduce a very special person who's been a great champion of our work. Ravi Venkatesan, who again Dr. Raj Shah mentioned earlier. Ravi Venkatesan is the special representative for the young and innovation at UNICEF. He's also the founder of the Global Alliance of Mass Entrepreneurship, and he is a champion of so many wonderful causes around the world, including Safe Water Network. So I now invite Ravi Venkatesan to talk to this global group and share his views. Ravi.
Thank you, Venki, and hello, everyone. It's fantastic to be in this global gathering of young change leaders from 35 countries. Venki had said I should share a few perspectives on this critical subject, so let me get straight into it. Look, I think that the defining skill for success in the 21st century isn't something like coding, but rather the ability to solve problems and lead change. And the reason for this is really simple. That even before COVID, the world was going through extraordinary rate of change and changing in extraordinary ways. And of course, what COVID has done is come in and amplified so many of these trends. Now, I think you all know what's driving this rate of change, which is unprecedented in human history. The first is technology, but the other one is changing beliefs and ideas about everything. The way we think about identity, the way we think about globalization, justice, sustainability, who gets to make the rules by which we run the world, everything is in flux. And therefore, we're living in a world which is very fluid. In fact, sociologists often use the term liquid modernity. And change is the only permanence, and uncertainty is the only certainty in the world that we live in today. And of course, this kind of fluidity impacts everyone, but it disproportionately impacts young people. And yesterday I was listening to Secretary General of the UN, Antonio Guterres, talk about the challenges that young people face. And it's really interesting. Right now, we have about 1.8 billion young people around the world. The way UN looks at it is anybody between the age of 10 and 24. It's the largest cohort in history. It's a cohort with phenomenal ambition, drive, talent, but also facing extraordinary challenges. And I want to mention two of the challenges. The first is in most parts of the world, the education system is obsolete and completely unprepared to enable young people for the world that we're headed into. If you think about it, the education system in much of the world is designed for a world that no longer exists, a world that is stable, a world where access to information is hard. We live in exactly the opposite reality. The world is unstable, and any kid with a cell phone has access to all the world's information, if you have the cell phone. So we've got to figure out, what to do if the education system isn't really all that effective. And of course, now with COVID, even that has been truncated, and you have half the kids on the wrong side of the digital divide. So just a huge crisis. The second equally huge challenge for young people, again, even pre-COVID, was employment. My generation had it easy. If you got a reasonable education, were willing to work hard, you had a reasonable shot at a secure job that would lead to a stable career. I think this is becoming scarcer and scarcer. There isn't such a thing as a secure job anymore. And more, the idea of jobs and career feels like a artifact of the last century. More and more, what is reality is things like gig work, self-employment. Raj talked about entrepreneurship, freelancing, and so forth. And our lives are more and more looking like a series of projects. So how the heck do you prepare yourself for a world that is changing in such dramatic ways? And more importantly, what will it take in terms of mindset and skill sets to flourish in the 21st century? And I've thought long and hard about this and had lots and lots of conversations with really, really interesting people. And I've come to believe that three things are really important. And the first of these is what people call agency or self-determination, which is a fancy word for saying, look, don't be a victim, no matter where you're born. Maybe you're born as a girl in Afghanistan, you're born in war-torn Syria, some really desperate place. Even there, how do you get to see yourself as having some amount of influence over your destiny and having the self-confidence to then act on it? This becomes one of the most important determinants of what we do with our lives. The second one is mindset. It's becoming clearer and clearer that if you want to succeed in the 21st century, you have to approach it like an explorer who's seeing life as an adventure. Now, psychologists have unpacked this in more precise ways. And people like Carol Dweck talk about the need to have a growth mindset as opposed to a fixed mindset. And if these words are new to you, I encourage you to go listen to her talks on TED and so on and so forth. So mindset becomes really important. The final piece is the skill to lead people to solve complex problems. Now, the challenge with all these three things is you can't learn them online. You can't even learn them in a classroom. There's only one way of learning it, which is experientially. And that is more specifically by tackling problems, progressively more and more complicated challenges and problems, wherever you are, in your school or college, in the community in which you live. And as you get more sophisticated, you can collaborate with other people all around the world using the internet to solve global scale problems. And so what we need to do is begin to think about these challenges as crucibles for leadership development. And so no matter what a young person chooses to do over time, whether it's to start a social enterprise that improves the world or a traditional business or express your talent in some other way, this mindset and skill set is fundamental and will stand you in great stead. And this is what we're trying to do in UNICEF. Now, very quickly, the other reason why I think change making is just so central to humanity is when you look at all the vexing and existential problems we have, it's becoming clear that we're making almost no progress towards solving them, despite having technology, resources, talent. And the core issue is leadership. And this is where I think we need a whole new paradigm of leadership, where we stop looking to people with formal authority and title and power and wealth to come to our rescue. Leadership for these problems must come from anywhere, everywhere, and most of all from young people, because you have the greatest stake in seeing these problems solved, and you have the drive and the energy. So I think, on a concluding note, our greatest hope for humanity is to see how can we engage 1.8 billion young people around the world and make this the greatest army of problem solvers, change makers, and leaders the world has ever seen. And that's really the core of what we're trying to do these days in UNICEF at GenU. It's very early days yet. Thank you.
Thank you, Ravi. That's really eye-opening. And I now invite Riley Brooks from Ashoka. I think she has a couple of questions for you. Hi, Riley.
Well, of course, it's Bill Drayton who coined the term change makers some time ago. So we owe him a great deal.
Yeah.
Exactly, yes. It's so great to meet you, Ravi. My name is Riley Brooks, everyone. I'm a storytelling and strategy lead with Ashoka, a global organization that is trying to build an everyone a changemaker world. So exactly what Ravi's saying is having people feel their power to create change for the good of all, no matter how big or small. And so Ravi, one of my questions for you is I actually read a recent article that you published in People Matters, and you shared that every job that I have done is not because I was qualified to do it, but it was because I was fascinated by it. So thinking back to when you were young, what fascinated you about the world, and how has that fascination changed throughout your career?
Well, when I was young was a long time ago. So it was late 60s and 70s, and absolutely everything fascinated me. That's not unique to me. It's true of every child. A child is a learning machine with boundless curiosity about everything. And of course, it's sad that we socialize them and beat the curiosity out of most people. But I was very fortunate. First of all, I lived at a time when the world was slower. And so there was plenty of time to daydream and look at stuff and observe nature. I also my father was a scientist, and my parents encouraged me to dream and be curious and so forth. I still remember I was very young, and I took apart my father's prized Grundig radio, and when I put it back together, there were a bunch of parts I was still left with. So that radio never worked again. But my mother, instead of getting angry, said, my son's going to be an engineer. And so I went on to do many things, built telescopes, built a microscope so that, which magnified 1,000 times. I won a scholarship for observing and writing about the behavior of ants at the age of 13, inspired by E.O. Wilson. And so I just did everything possible. Now, then, of course, came the treadmill of achievement, of college, jobs, and I lost my curiosity. But more importantly, I became very focused in directing my curiosity. But then in the last 10 years, I've had a chance to strengthen that muscle again, doing many, many, many different things, including learning to fly a plane, play the accordion, save a failing public sector bank, the work I do at UNICEF, just a dramatically wide variety of things. And so I think curiosity is this muscle which at any age, no matter how much it's atrophied, you can strengthen again.
That's beautiful, and I totally agree. And I just love your message for young people. I think it's encouraging and inspiring and solutions-based, not problem-based. And so I'd love to know a little bit more about, in your perspective, what is unique about the world today and what gives you hope beyond just the young generation?
Yeah, as I said, the thing that is most unique about this moment in history, human history, is the rate of change. The world is going to change more in this century than all of human history, okay? And that we don't know the ways in which it's going to change, but we can safely make that prediction. And the problem with that, Riley, is it creates what biologists call an adaptation challenge, which is when the world changes really dramatically, really fast, many of us are unable to adapt fast enough. And then what happens is suffering. So in evolutionary biology, for instance, when you have these great extinction events, like the asteroid hitting the Earth 65 million years ago, most species can't adapt and they die, like the dinosaurs. And then a few manage to adapt and they flourish, like mammals. So right now we're going through one of these unprecedented periods. And those of us who are unable to change are going to really, really struggle and suffer. Now, so that's the issue. So how do you prepare this generation of young people for this rate of change? And that's nothing you can do in the education system. It has to happen outside in the school called life. And the thing that gives me the greatest hope is how if we can inspire and enable and support and encourage many more young people, 3 orders of magnitude more young people to become change makers like yourselves and Garvita and so forth, I think then the world stands a real chance of solving some of its most pressing problems.
That's great. Thank you so much. Venki, I'll pass it back to you.
Thank you, Riley, and thank you, Ravi. That was really insightful and plenty of food for thought for so many young people who are listening in and who will listen to this recorded version many times over. So thank you both, and Ashoka, thanks for being such a great partner to this event. Well, I must definitely now shift our attention to Ghana, one of the countries where we work in, and some amazing work is happening again, despite the pandemic and despite the challenges on the ground. An amazing team is doing our work there, and we are very proud to present one of our young people working as a part of our team. And she's a great role model for how to break the barriers and work in a sector like the water sector. So please listen to our colleague from Ghana.
Hi, Mabel. It's so good to see you, and thank you so much for being with us here today. To start off, we just kind of want to know, what is your role as a Field Services Capability Officer entail?
Well, I'm Mabel Adesincha. I work with Safe Water Network as a Field Service Entity Officer. What I normally do is I ensure that the station is up and running every day, every time of the day. I ensure that there is enough chlorine in the water. We are producing clean and healthy water for people to consume. I usually liaise with the community leaders to ensure that everything is running smoothly. There aren't any challenges whenever they are having technical issues, maybe with water or pipes, any pipes burst. I go in there, bring them the technicians to help them fix it. Mainly ensuring that the station is running and producing clean and safe water for people to consume.
Great. So you are definitely a troubleshooter, and you solve all the problems. So what impact has water access had on the communities that you help serve?
A lot of impact in terms of the lives of the people living there. Their lives have been transformed. They no longer have to walk long distances before they can fetch water. School children, who are usually the ones to go and fetch the water, now can go to school early as they can have the water right there in front of their houses. The communities are now open. People now come into the communities and stay. That wasn't the case previously because they didn't have water. So the community wasn't appealing enough to a lot of people, but now that's not the case. And we are able to have running taps in people's houses. They can just turn their taps off in their houses and then water will be flowing through it as well. And all this is helping us achieve SDG Goal 6, which is concerned with providing clean water and sanitation to all. So primarily that's a little impact Safe Water had on the communities. In terms of young people as well, they are able to find a means of income, earning income through businesses that have been created through Safe Water Network. There are people who are into poultry farming, who are using our water to feed and maintain their poultry. People who are into water delivery services, whereas they deliver water to the doorstep of people who don't have water connected to their homes. These people bring the water, these young people, they bring the water right to their doorsteps and they're able to consume water as well. Local restaurants use our water to produce or cook healthy meals for people to consume. And these young people are more than grateful to us that we've been able to allow them have access to water, that they've used it to create lucrative businesses for themselves as well. Yeah.
Amazing. That sounds incredible. Very, very cool job. Now, we want to get your take on, what advice would you give a young person who's looking to make a difference in the world?
Well, there's always an opportunity to make a difference. Check within your community. There's someone who needs help. You can create something to help the person. Let me take this NGO I started. I joined actually. There's this young lady. She studied a little bit of psychology in school. So when she saw the mentally ill people in society being very unkept and untidy, she took it upon herself to just help them maintain healthy lifestyles. And it's an opportunity she just saw. Just seeing one mentally ill person encourage her to do something. So You can help a young teenager learn a trade, learn a simple skill on the internet, just something very small so that you can make a living for yourself and then an impact on your society. So don't look for a big opportunity. No, just look around you. There are other things that you can just do for yourself and your community as well. Thank you.
Very well said. Thank you so much, Mabel. We really enjoyed talking to you. So we'll see you soon.
Wow, it's amazing to see what young women like Mabel are doing in and around Accra and Ghana, and you know, I'm sure there are so many more examples from around the world. I do want to welcome a very interesting person from DevX. Raj Kumar is the founder and editor-in-chief of DevX. And Raj, great to have you with us. And DevX has been a fabulous partner as well. You're such an amazing global platform. And you know, so many people from Raj Shah to Ravi Venkatesh and everybody talked about jobs and entrepreneurships and careers in international development. Well, before I talk about that, you know, you've been listening in, and this is a global network. What are your big overarching thoughts to this community, Raj?
Well, it's been a great discussion so far. Nice to see you, Venki, and really great to be invited to be a part of this. Yeah, you're hitting on, and I think all the speakers have hit on kind of the things that we're all waking up every day and thinking about. I mean, remember the beginning of this pandemic, and the advice we got from the health authorities was wash your hands. And it seems like pretty simple advice until it strikes you that for so many people in the world, that's not something they have access to. Clean water and soap is, you know, something as basic as that is not available to everyone on this earth. And there was a lot of thought at the beginning of the pandemic too, that it would be kind of a great equalizer, right? We had this sense that, well, this is hitting everyone in every country. It's a true pandemic. And what's become very clear, as your other participants have outlined today, is that, well, it's not really true. It's hit everyone, sure, but in very different ways. And if you are wealthy and you can work from home, it's a very different experience living through this pandemic than if you have to be a frontline worker. If you have running water, if you have heat and electricity, it's a very different experience. And so I think what all of us, I assume people joining this call from around the world, but all of us really in the world today at the same moment are doing is kind of reflecting in a way we haven't before about the way our global societies are structured, the way our own communities are structured, and all the inequality that's baked into it, and what those really mean. I mean, we live with them every day, but when you see it in the context of a pandemic where people are dying, it becomes really stark. It becomes really stark. And so I think you're hearing a lot of that today in the discussion, and that's my reflection. I'm also taking away the opportunity and the hope. You know, anytime you get a moment like this, where the world is focused and paying attention in a different way, there's a chance to do something about it. And it's certainly going to be the kind of people who are on this call, the young people who are out there trying to change things, that have a chance to do that.
Yeah, Raj, thank you for that. And really, I want to explore one aspect with you, because DevX has been such an amazing hub for careers and jobs in international development. You've been a magnet for so many young professionals from around the world. How have you seen that evolve? And you know, there are so many young people with such great intentions and skills and so on, but they're unsure as to what's the right way to get into an international development, into a social change making career, job, or enterprise. So what are your thoughts on that, Raj?
Yeah, well, you know, we started DevX 20 years ago, and I was a graduate student, and I actually was in a very similar position maybe to some of the people who are on this call, in that I was trying to figure out what to do with my life. And I wanted to get a job. I wanted to do something in global development. You know, my dad was from India. I had an aunt and uncle who were development scholars. They would take me to village visits and things when I was a kid in India. So I had this idea that I wanted to do something that would have an impact in the world, that would connect to these issues that we're here talking about today. But I didn't actually know what that would be. And so when I started asking people, and I was at Harvard's government school doing a master's degree in my early 20s, and I started asking people, well, how do I get a job? And they said, you know, go down to Washington, D.C. and go to cocktail parties. And that's how you get a job. You have to network, you have to know people. And I thought, is this really how a mission-driven industry works? You know, if you want to get a job at a nonprofit, you've got to go network. And I was kind of shocked by it, but they weren't wrong. This is really how the development sector worked. And so myself and some friends thought, maybe we can do something to help address that. And that was part of the impetus for creating DevX, was to say, let's build a neutral, independent platform a website that people like myself, that anybody could just go to and see a list of all the jobs and a list of all the projects and a list of all the organizations, and read eventually over time really credible independent news and analysis, hard-hitting news about what's happening in our sector. And so we've now grown. We've got more than 1 million development professionals and aid workers all over the world who count DevEx as their home. They're who are members of our site and come and read their news and find out about jobs. And so we've evolved. The industry has evolved a lot. And I think maybe one of the biggest changes is that when you, in the past, you might have said, well, I want to get a job doing something in global development. I'm going to call up Save the Children, or I'm going to call up UNICEF, or maybe USAID. You know, you had a short list of big brand name organizations. And I think where young people are today is a little bit different, where they're saying to themselves, you know what, wherever I am in the world, whatever job I find myself in, I'm going to change from here. And I think the industry, the aid industry, the development sector has grown dramatically. And the example I'll give you quickly is Starbucks. You know, we don't think twice now. Obviously, during this pandemic, we're not walking into too many Starbucks, but when we walk into a Starbucks and we see that the coffee of the day is from Rwanda or from Guatemala, countries where maybe more than half the population lives in extreme poverty, we don't think twice about it. It's normal now. But Starbucks has to make sure that those farmers aren't in extreme poverty, that their kids can go to school, that they have reliable water resources, that they have high quality coffee beans that we all want to drink. And in a way, Starbucks is in the global development business, right? They're in the same kind of business that you at Safe Water Network are in a way. And so you can be in a job at a big global corporation, in a small local business. You could be in a nonprofit or a for-profit, and you can make change from where you are. And I think that's the big insight that a lot of young people are bringing to the world now. They're using their platform, they're using their voice, they're using the place they sit, whether it's at a university or it's in an early entry-level job, to make some real change, and they're not being quiet about it.
Thank you, Raj. That's very well put, and in fact, you've given me a very wonderful segue to an amazing change maker we're going to introduce. But I really, really want to thank what DevEx is doing to really be this amazing convening platform for aspiring young professionals and leaders who want to really be a part of the global change-making business. So we look forward to continuing to working with DevEx. And Raj, thank you for joining us, and appreciate all the support from the DevEx team.
Thank you. These are the most important issues in the world. So I'm so glad to get a chance to talk about them and to be with so many amazing change makers. Thank you again.
Thank you, Raj. And I now would love to introduce Garvita Gulhati, who is the quintessential change maker, just the kind of person that Raj Kumar was talking about. Welcome, Garvita, and great to have you as part of today's convening. And Garvita, you won the Global Young Changemaker Award from Ashoka. You are in Bangalore, and you're doing something amazing around the issue of water. So please share your story with us, Garvita.
Thank you so much, Venki and the entire Safe Water Network team, for having me here. It's truly a pleasure, and I would just love to take a moment to be grateful for the fact that we all have a roof on our heads. I jump right into what Venki's asked me to talk about. So today I'm very excited to share my journey and my story with all of you. And I want to start off with sharing a story that I've actually never shared on any other platform before with anyone else. A couple of years ago, I live in urban Bangalore, and my house was flooded. So the entire ground floor had water up to the knee level, and it was something that happened overnight, and we all woke up with, water at that, with not being able to even, go and get a glass of water to drink from the kitchen. So it was really the situation where you talk about, water everywhere, but not a drop to drink. And it was moments like these which were really changing for me and impactful for me in wanting to go and understand more about the water crisis, the irrational distribution, and the unequal usage. And I started reading more about the problems that our country, India, specifically faces. And I was reading about, farmers who were taking their lives, about women and girls who were walking over 6 miles just to get a glass of water, which we would get, without even moving a finger. And that's really something that began to move me, and I wanted to do something to change it, but I really didn't know what. And that's when I happened to come across this piece of information that said 14 million liters of water is wasted every year simply in the water that we leave behind in glasses at restaurants. And I think the triviality of that egregious number just kind of shook me. And at that moment, I said, I need to do something. And I was just 15 years old back then. And I guess the most positive thing that I could do was to start something of my own to help change this number. And that was the inception of my initiative, Why Waste? And at that point, what I was just trying to do was kind of convince restaurants to change the way that they're using water, to change their, approach to customers. But it was really difficult, and for a lot of reasons. And that was one, because my family and my teachers and everyone was kind of like forcing me to focus on my studies because I was in high school, and friends were not all that supportive. They were kind of taunting me all the time, and restaurateurs simply refused to take advice from a teenager. They said, why should we listen to you? What have you got to tell us that we don't already know? And but I think I felt very compellingly connected to this purpose, and I really refused to be disheartened at that moment, and reapproached the problem with this concept called glass half full, which is all about filling the glass only half instead of filling it full. And that way you give people only as much as they need and not waste. And place cards like these would really motivate people. We would share stories of folks around the world who don't have the access to water, to kind of make them empathize with the problem, and also give a dialogue between the restaurateurs, the waiters, and the customers to understand this issue better. And I think it snowballed a lot from here. We were able to convince the NRAI, even though it took us an entire year to get this body on board. And we had to kind of prove to them that this concept saves 50% of the water that was being wasted earlier. But I think their support has been amazing, because they helped us reach 5 lakh restaurants across the country. And this idea really made me see that, there's a way that you need to balance economy and ecology, because we were able to sell this idea to the restaurateurs only when we told them that, you're going to save some money when you save some water. And that taught me the importance of, kind of balancing economy and ecology. And that has kind of rolled into this other passion of mine, where I want to develop more sustainable practices in businesses. But, coming back to Why Waste and the various things that we try to do, and it's kind of like all about trying to bring a change in the mindset. So I truly believe that the greatest asset that we all have is our mindsets. And I think Ravi and Rajiv both mentioned it earlier, that the way that you think makes a very huge difference. And, a lot of people ask me how much is just, saving half a glass is going to make any difference. But when every single person in this globe can, saves that little bit of water, it really, really multiplies into a large number. So yeah, I think that is the positivity in just trying to change someone's mindset. And I feel like this mindset of mine was really, really inculcated into me at a very young age, where my parents, I spent more of my birthdays in orphanages than, actually having parties and building that empathy. And I realized it was so important to tell this to the young people, especially those kids between grades 1 to 5. And that's when at Why Waste, we created this book called The Sustainability Stories, which is like a collection of 13 fabulous fables, which tell young people to, it's in a very interesting way, teaching them how to have a more eco-friendly mindset and also be the change that they wish to see in the world. And I think we've been talking a lot about using technology to help, bring about sustainability and sustainable ideas. And recently, we've also developed this app that's going to help you save at least 100 liters of water every single day. It's going to help you calculate something called your water footprint. It's going to help you learn how much water you're actually consuming, and teach you ways in which you can save it. And this is interesting, because we do it in a way that you've probably never experienced before. And I think the idea behind it is to also make people understand how privileged we are to have this resource at our disposal. And it's something that, people across the globe don't really have. About 3 years ago, when I graduated from school, Bangalore, which is the city in which I live, was named as the second city in the world to run out of water after Cape Town. And that news really moved me, because at that was the point when I was taking the decision of, okay, what am I going to do next with my life? Am I going to continue to, where am I going to go study and all of those things? And that was when for me, it kind of was a no-brainer to want to stay back in Bangalore and continue to grow Y-Waste, even though kind of everyone from the team had moved on. But for me, it was really at that moment, I just wanted to stay here, and I wanted to ensure that I try to give my best and do as much as I can. And it was a real shocker to everyone around me, because I put down scholarships abroad, and I said, no, I want to stay here and I want to do as much as I can. And at that point, we really hadn't accomplished much except for coming up with the idea of glass half full. But today, to have been able to take it to 5 lakh restaurants and to have saved millions of liters of water with it and impacted several lives is I think what makes me believe that it is important for us as young people to realize that our ideas make a difference, and we bring this wonderfully unique perspective to the world. And there are people out there like you folks who are supporting us, who are there to help us. And I think it's so important for us to grab onto that and find the right space where we can make a difference, because the entire journey is just truly, truly empowering. And I think beyond that, the last thing that I would want to probably share is for me, the dream really is to have everyone say at the end of their day, how much water could I save today? And I think that would be one of the most powerful things when we talk about the water perspective. But yeah, that's I think about this issue, and going beyond, just quickly one last thing, which is all about why it is so important to change mindsets over coming up with huge methodologies and technologies to solve this issue. When we found out that Cape Town is going to be the next city is going to be the first city to run out of water, all of us probably thought that they did run out of water. But here's the thing: they did not run out of water. They were able to actually save themselves from it, and they did that simply by changing the way that people consume water. The citizens were the ones who took action. The young people took the lead, and they went out there and taught everyone else how they can save water every single day. They came down to just using less than 50 liters of water per person. And I think that is so powerful, because it makes you realize that changing your habits can change the world in such a huge way. And yeah, so that's what I would love to leave everyone with, is that you matter.
Thank you, Garvita. That's hugely inspiring, and more power to Y-Waste and to your amazing efforts. And let's hope that more and more young people will contact you. Many of them have tuned in from Bangalore and other parts of India. I hope they'll contact you and become a part of your national movement with the National Restaurant Association and all that great stuff that you're doing. And thank you for joining this evening, even at this late hour, Garvita. So. And I hope your app gets a lot more downloads from all the young people who are listening right now. Thank you, and we now move to the last speaker. But I can't think of a better person to really help us wrap this amazing coming together, because she is a huge role model for many of us. I'm so pleased to introduce Chandrika Tandon to provide the closing remarks. Chandrika Tandon, she is the chair of the NYU Tandon School of Engineering. She is a real role model of a philanthropist, and she really walks the talk. But more than anything else, she's such an inspiring human being, and also through her music, she's been transforming so many lives. So it's such a delight and honor to have Chandrika wrap up this part of our amazing convening. And so, Chandrika, welcome to the gathering.
Thank you, Venki. And before I get started, I just want to say, Safe Water Network, you guys are doing a fantastic job. I mean, it's very inspiring as I've gotten to know a little bit about what you're doing. It's amazing that you're dealing with one of the most important challenges on the planet. As I'm sitting here and I'm listening to everyone from Kavita to Abigail to Raj Shah and everyone else, I must say, and knowing the kind of people that are on the phone or on Zoom today, I really feel this intense sense of hope and excitement, and I feel like our planet is in very, very safe hands.
the problems we are dealing with are many. I mean, they've got so many solutions. They've been around for a long time, and a lot of people are working on lots of minor and major solutions all around the world. Safe Water Network is working in Ghana and India, but there's ideas around water, just taking one example, across many, many, many countries. So the big question in my mind, and I'm older than a lot of you in this room, and when we start to look at it, and I've been in the development world for quite a while because I've had the pleasure of wearing several hats as a business person, as a head of a foundation, who actually was actively involved in livelihood development, and now in the education sector and in the arts sector. So what comes to my mind is, while so many efforts are going on, how can we create scale so that at some point we can say the problem of water is checked off our list? How can we actually solve it? Of course, these are intractable big solutions, but we have a whole world working towards it. And so, I've been thinking about this, certainly in my time when I spent several years in development, going around to different villages in both the Amazon and in India. This was a great question in my mind because I would see so many change makers doing such a lot of exciting stuff. So I'm just going to give my point of view, and I like alliterations. So I would think of this in terms of sort of 3 C's to scale it up. And I think that's something we all have to come together to think about. One is connection, second is coordination, and the third is curiosity, which Ravi and others have touched on. Connection. We have to connect the dots. There are so many examples. I mean, water isn't it? We're talking about water, but this goes for any of the areas which are part of the engineering grand challenges or the SDGs or the Millennium Development Goals or whatever. The problems, the ideas are many. And it's also like, it's like the blind man and the elephant. There are so many elements to the water problem. It's not just there are economic issues, there are social issues, behavior issues, there are technology issues, engineering solutions, there are science issues. And all of these are individual disciplines and legal issues when you start to get into division and so on, and individual sovereignty and country issues because people want to share, people don't want to share, transportation issues. So this is one problem along a whole set of goals. So the dots have to be connected. The way the dots were connected in the past isn't enough. Now, COVID has brought a lot of problems, but COVID has also, one can almost call it the COVID connection, because the one thing I've seen, particularly working in the space of technology and engineering intensively, is I've just seen how extraordinarily open source work has happened, and how wonderfully researchers all over the world have started to share ideas, across in collaborative ways that they never did before, and how best practices were ramped up at an unprecedented scale. So I think there's an opportunity for us all, for you guys as young people, and for organizations like Safe Water Network and everyone else, because it's not just one. Water is just one of multiple grand challenges the world faces. The second piece, which I'm going to call coordination. It's such a trite word, but it means so much, because in my work and as I see what's happening is that there's so many institutions working on the same problem. So you've got academic institutions, you've got not-for-profit institutions, you've got change makers like yourselves, you've got government agencies, and you've got businesses. You've alluded to many of that in the course of this conversation. So the question is, people, and Rajiv in the beginning spoke about measurement and so on, but what you need is to have everyone come together with common measurement techniques. It's not one person's measurement techniques. We measure GDP for all countries. We need the similar and very specific measures of success, and everyone needs to agree on them for each and every problem. And that needs to be implemented and actually scaled up in a way that, and the other thing I would say in terms of coordination is that the world needs to come together and blanket an area, blanket a problem. I mean, polio, the eradication of polio, or the close eradication of polio, happened because it was such a concerted effort across multiple people with great leadership. So this is something I think is what's got to happen for us to really scale up the solutions to the problems. The last one, and this gets very much to the role of young people, is again, curiosity. And curiosity, especially as I think a lot about the education system here, and we think about how do we get the scientific thinking and how do we get social thinking, how do we get critical thinking inculcated in young minds. The gift of curiosity has got to be one of the greatest gifts that if I could wave a wand and give it to you, I would give it to you. Ask questions about why and ask questions about why not. The best, most exciting solutions, particularly solutions at the bottom of the pyramid, have come because somebody did not take no for an answer and kept asking why not. We heard this from some of the young people that spoke today, so do not lose it. But the thing I would say about curiosity is not only about things. Curiosity is also about people. Many a technology has failed because human behavior simply didn't work to make the technology operational. And many a practice is because centuries have thought about it a particular way. And so if you don't get and understand the holistic picture of what human activity is, as well as the technological or the actual physical solution to a problem is, you've essentially lost the possibility of a true solution. So these are, one might say, well, if I'm simply a young person dealing with a piece of it, how can I coordinate? How can I connect the dots? You are all powerful. And whatever positions you're in, you have an opportunity. The voices that you have in this incredibly conscious generation have an opportunity to really come together to think beyond your own little spheres. The net and the whole technological underpinnings we have allow you to access a world that I couldn't, 50 years ago, which you guys can. So the world is truly open to you, and you all need to come together in innovative ways. You have to think about that. May the force be with you, and I just wish you all the best. And I hope you will just make the planet a lot better place than it is today. Thank you all for your great work.
Chandrika, that was incredible, and I'm sure the 3 C's will stick in everybody's mind. And if I can engage you in one very quick question, actually I'm going to combine a couple of things in the interest of time. You've been through the Tandon School of Engineering and through all the other educational work that you're doing. You're engaging with a lot of young people. So what drives you to really spend that kind of time with young people? And second, there was a question from a young person in Boston who said, how do you deal with fear to the goal of positive change, fear in its various forms, fear of some people gaining more agency than the others, and its various manifestations. So what inspires you to work with young people, and how do you deal with this fear of change?
I'm going to start with the second question first. If, again, really more than reading, writing, and arithmetic, if we could really empower the young people, and we use the word empower, what is power? It would really be this gift of confidence that you really are, you are perfection the way you are today. And as long as your focus is on a goal much bigger than yourself, if your goal is about making yourself better, or making yourself sort of aggrandizing yourself, your ego's involved, you're simply not going to get the best solution. I've seen this in my own life. My own evolution has been where my entire focus is on a set of issues which have nothing to do with me. I don't care what role I have. I don't care what position I have. I just happen to have several positions, but it's not what drives me. It really is. I started out in places where I was so consumed by the problem and trying to get enough people to get the right solutions. And that gets to the second point, Venki, which is the reason I work with young people is that these are extraordinary minds. And if we can get them to the right kind of education, with the critical thinking, with this sort of intense inner confidence, we don't just change one generation, we change multiple generations. We really can make the world a better place. And that's really what I'm driven by. And this group of change makers today just reminds me that there's amazing good in this world, and we can talk about all the stuff that isn't happening, but there's a lot happening, and more will and should happen.
Thank you, Chandrika. Once again, we are so appreciative of your time and very, very inspiring words. And that concludes our discussion part of it, and I want to invite my colleague Marissa to join me while we say a quick round of thank yous to various people. We are extremely grateful to the various partners and various collaborating organizations who are a part of this effort. We do want to take this, we do want to continue this momentum, and please expect different kinds of activity going forward through this platform later in the year, and we will keep you posted. We have all your contact information right now, but also feel free to reach out to us through the Safe Water Network website, through the contact information that you have received through our recent exchanges. Marissa, would you like to say anything else?
Yeah, I would really like to thank all our partners, sponsors, contributors, our volunteers who have been amazing. And we have, yep, there we go. And yeah, I hope everyone is feeling supercharged and inspired. If you're interested in getting involved or learning more about our work, please connect with us via email or social media channels, which are listed right there. And we would love to hear from you.
Once again, thank you all for joining at various times. You know, some of you it's in the middle of your workday, some of you it's late in the night, and some of you are just starting your day. But it's been amazing to bring this global community together, and we hope to do some wonderful things with all of you going forward. Thank you again,
Yes.
and we appreciate everyone's participation. And Marissa, over to you.
And now I would like to bring on the fabulous Grammy-recognized artist, Masha Bratskaya. Hi, Masha.
Hello, Marissa. Hello,
Over to
Venki.
you.
Hello, everyone. Well, first of all, I just want to say that I've been sitting here like watching and listening to everyone, and it's truly amazing, you know, just to recognize how many brilliant, amazing game changers and free thinkers are out there. And thank you so much, Safe Water Network, you know, for this amazing event, bringing all these people together and talking about the most important topics of not only our time but all times. And well, Chandrika, beautiful, amazing Chandrika, just I'm your huge fan, you know, like everyone today was so amazingly inspiring, and everyone gave such an amazing educative performance. But like, I'm totally your new huge fan, and you stole all of my points about connecting dots in the space, about people coming together, and how crucially important it is, you know, like Dr. Rajiv and Mr. Venkata-san, you guys both said, you know, like that it's very important to think how we can prepare new generations for this new world, you know, and to help others to adapt, because this is the key for evolution. And I want to say that, of course, you know, like art and education are some of the very essentials. And of course, like such thing like clean, safe water is what is essential for living, and being able to have art and education. And art and education, in turn, you know, are essential for intelligence and knowledge and health and motivation in order to actually keep it sustainable, and also making living meaningful and worthy. And one of the greatest challenges of our times is, of course, how separated people are. So that's where art and education are their mission. Our mission is to bring people together, and it's one of my most important missions in my life, bring people together. And that's what I've been trying to do with my art and with all my activities. And right now it is a pleasure for me to show you one of these expressions of it's my personal language, my art, my music, how I bring people together. It's just really very interesting, and one of the best examples that I personally have for now. Like 4 weeks ago, I wrote, exactly 4 weeks ago, I wrote this song for United Nations International Youth Day celebration. And the most important part for me here was that this song actually was able, just even for a few seconds, to bring people together, you know, because love has no borders, no limits. And after the song, I hope I will be able to have a couple of seconds to tell you about the creation of the song. It's a really very good example, again, like how much we can achieve, when we are cooperating, when we are working together, when we put our hearts, our hands, and our minds together. So yes, please, if we could just quickly watch the song.
Where do we come from now? What do we say out loud? Fire on fire, fire on fire. They wanna break it down, they wanna make you cry. Fire on fire, fire on fire. You don't even know me, but I can be your enemy, just because they say, hold on, you put your hatred down. They wanna us divided, but I don't wanna fight. All we want is love, all we want is love, all I want is love, all I want is love. When do we see without eyes? When do we say the truth? A fire on fire, a fire on fire. When do we stand we're tall? When do we say it all? We are the one, we are the all. We are the one, we are the all. I don't even know you, but I am here to hold you. I can feel your pain. Put your fears away. I am here to say, we're the one, we're the all. We're the one, we're the all. We want is love. All we want is love. All we want is love. All we want is love. In our vision, in our vision. All we want is love. 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 In our vision, in our vision. All we want is love. All we want is love.
Hi, can you see me? Can you hear me? Oh, yes.
You're
Yep.
on.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for watching. It is really, it is very, this song and that performance was very meaningful to me, because the whole thing, something that I value the most in the world, when people do have a chance working together and becoming what we all really are, the one and the all. That's what really important. And if I have a couple of seconds, a couple of minutes, do I guess have a couple of minutes? I just want to quickly tell our story, because it's a great example, what the power of positive motivation is capable of, and what the power of people coming together is capable of. Cool. So I was invited to be the headliner artist and also an executive music producer for this UN International Youth Day celebration. And I was very busy with preparing everything, making sure that everyone's gonna look and sound great and the event is gonna be amazing. And I was pretty much sure what song I was going to perform. And 7 days before the show, 10 p.m., it occurs to me that actually I might want to write something special for this special event. And midnight, and I sit at the piano, actually right here, and I actually send a little prayer to the universe and to my ancestors to help me to put together something something great, and also with with such a short amount of time. So 4 a.m. I got out of my piano with music and with lyrics and with demo recording. Next day, noon, you know, I played to my production partner, Grammy-winning producer Brian Forbes, and he loves it. And now I need to record it in the studio, and the studio is booked. So 1 a.m. sharp, I start my session, and 3 hours later, I leave with piano parts recorded. Next day, I record vocals. It's already day 3, right? Day 4, I record violins, and I also call all my friends, you know, who can help me just putting together a video, such last moment. So day 5, we're shooting the video. Day 6, while everyone is editing the video, I'm calling everyone because I've just got this idea. I just wanted to bring people together, and I called Marisa. I called Venki. I was like, Venki, I just have this huge idea. I need to bring as many different countries, as many different cultures and people together. I need India. Please get me India to sing in my song. And Venki connected me with somebody in India, and we were able to get a group of people from India, like actually 5 artists. So during 24 hours, we were able to put together 7 artists from 17 countries. And to make everyone to record the video, to send it to us, so we would just add it to the video, and basically in 7 days, such a magical number for creation. In 7 days, something was created because, yes, again, 2 things: because of the power of creation and positive motivation, and because of people being able to work together. So this is where real magic happens, because everything in the world is so connected and so interconnected, and we all are links in the chain. We all are parts of the great water cycle, actually, both like literally and figuratively. And right now, if you guys still want to play the other video, or just a couple of words about the other video, it's just my work in music and virtual reality, and also neuroscience, putting these technologies together with art. Thank you so much for watching this one. And here, it's actually me coming together, being friends with technology, and putting putting acoustic art, acoustic music, composed music, and improvised music with such cutting edge technologies as virtual augmented reality and neuroscience. So like everything all like all the visuals that you saw, they were created in real time by movement and by sound. This is one of the things that I've been working on, developing, visualizing emotional, physical trajectory for live performance. And I just want to say one more time, thank you everyone for being here today, tonight. For somebody it's already evening. Thank you so much for having me here, and just want to say one more time how important it is for us all to come together, for all people, different cultures, people and technology, for all of us to work together, because only when we are working together, then that's when the magic happens, and that's when we can change the world to the better. Thank you so much.
Well said. Very well said. Thank you, Masha. Thank you everyone for being with us. We really hope you enjoyed this Global Youth Convening. Again, we will share the recording with you soon after this. So see you all at the next event. And remember, you're never too young to make a difference. Take care. Thanks.